that's always the energy that I wanted to be around, just to be around people who make things and do things and are excited about your work.
Hello, writers and crafters. I'm Valerie Isan,
And I'm Eric Mertz.
and this is episode 143 of the podcast. It's January 10th, 2024, as we record this. We want to thank all of our existing patrons for believing in our work offline and here at the podcast. You can become a patron of the arts at patreon.com/Valerie Isan for books, writing instruction, coaching, and planning. And go to patreon.com/Strange Air Stories for short stories in the paranormal mystery genre. Um, Hi, Eric, by the way.
How are you?
I'm good. I was just going to dive right into announcements, but
Do it. Do it. Why not?
Okay, let's get the announcements out of the way then. I have two new ones. So the standard one is the registration is open for the 2024 Writer Craft Writing Retreat and Workshop in Marcola, Oregon. It's on the Mackenzie River. It's really gorgeous out there. At this point, there's only 4 private tickets left, and there's 3 shared tickets, which is at a lower rate. Y'all get yours. Everyone gets their own bed, but it's one big, like, yurt kind of structure. It's really pretty. And we will likely sell out again. So go to valerieisan.com/retreat for more information. The two new announcements I have are I'm doing a reading this Saturday if you're local to the area at Tsunami
Well,
Books
I
in
wish I was. I don't even know what the reading
Oregon.
is, and I wish I was. I wish
Well,
I
you're
was
close
local.
enough. You could bring your kiddo and just fly on down. The reading's at 5 p.m. and then there's a wine reception afterwards. It's hosted by Tsunami Press, so I'll be reading from the anthology that they published, and there'll be a bunch of other people there too, reading from their portion of the. He's actually doing 2 readings, Saturday and Sunday. So, half the people are reading on Saturday and half the people are reading on Sunday. And of course, not everybody from the anthology can read at the live event. But anyway, so you could order the book wherever books are sold. There'll be plenty there at the reading if you are local to the Eugene, Oregon area. And the next announcement I have is my Focus and Finish group coaching cohort starts next week. So we'll meet most Tuesdays through March at 4 p.m. Pacific. And I've discounted it this week. So it's $333 for group coaching for this quarter. You can go to valerieisan.com/shopping to purchase that. Those are my announcements. What about you?
I don't have anything. No, nothing new. Nothing new going on here.
But you have a book that came out not too long ago. Keep plugging your
It's
book.
out there. I mean,
I always
I
do it
just
for you.
got.
You gotta practice, dude.
Oh, I know. Okay, so the print cover is finally after. Here's what I do. Here's what's the opposite of superpower. Here's my kryptonite. Like, I send the copy in for book covers, and then then I do the copywriting. Then I do the like, or sorry, the line editing. When
Mm.
I Once the designer has that back book copy and it's all there, it's like, oh, okay, can we change this word? And then instead of just doing that at my desk, which would take me an hour, it takes me, going on 6 weeks of like, no, 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 can you change that word? No, 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 no. Can you make that word?
Dude, you're one of
Um,
those guys? The cover
I
designer's
am
probably loving you right now.
I always tip them.
Okay.
I always tip. Um, it's and this don't take this the wrong way, but it's also like I'm working with someone who's overseas, so that delays the time, and I'm
It
working with
totally
someone
does.
overseas,
Different time zones, yeah.
not an yeah, and not a native English speaker, so there's not and again, this might be my expectations, and I know I need to change my behavior, but I've gone into this with like a few times I've gotten back design changes where I'm like, no, 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 that's not what I said. I
Hmm.
like they don't have, like, since English isn't their first language, they'll just take what I say and do it instead of looking at it and going, well, wait, do you mean this? Because this doesn't make any sense. Um, so I don't get like they're not, and I've had this like, okay, you know what? Stop expecting people to do your job for you. That's like a New Year's resolution, to be honest. Like there's a
Oh.
few places in my professional life where I just sort of like assume that the next person's got it. They don't got it. Um,
Nobody can read your
so
mind.
well, and it's not up to I don't know. It's not up to them to be a copy editor. So yeah, that's a long way of saying I just got the final print copy, cover copy back, and everything's good. It looks right, and we should be ready to go. But um, it only took 6 weeks of copy editing through my um, through the cover designer. So here's your advice, folks: do the copy while it's in Word, not while it's being designed. It will hold you up forever.
But in the meantime, you can get your copy of, see, I'm doing this for you again, Eric.
Oh my gosh,
Season
I'm
of the
so bad at it.
Shadow.
It is
Out
on
now.
Amazon. Out now on Amazon.
And it's
Yeah,
really
and I'm
good.
actually thank you. Um, see, you're good at this. I need to hire you as a marketing person. Because I'm immediately when you say what's going on, I'm like, well, I'm working on this and I'm working on that. I see, I'm always thinking about what I'm doing and not what I've done. It's a something I've got to get over.
Maybe
If
make
anybody's,
like a done list, like an accolades list or something in your planner, like in the back. Is there a blank page or something? You can just sort of be like, hey, that was a really cool thing I did, and just start making a list so that by the end of the month or the quarter or the year, even, you can see like, wow, look at all these cool things I did.
it's funny that you go there because I just think I need something like I need to very deliberately create like remind myself of the things that I've done so that I know what to talk about when I'm in any sort of like writer networking situation because look, there's a certain I think there's certain creatives out there who are really good at they've created the thing and they want to talk about it. But I think I'm the creative that wants to like I'm always more interested in talking about the thing that I'm doing, the thing
Mm-hmm.
that is possible. The thing that is done is sort of like well, that's done. That's out. Like, what am I, I'm thinking about breakfast while I'm cleaning up dinner dishes. I'm not reflecting on the meal. So I don't know. It's a long-winded way of saying I have to learn that skill or I may just hire someone who has that skill. I don't know.
Okay, anything
And
else for author
yeah.
updates?
No, I'm working on the sort of first three stories in a new series.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've got the reader magnet done. I've got the not the first novel. I'm into the first novel. And actually what I want to do with this series is write sort of like short story novella book, novel, short story novella novel and use I've kind of created this like large sort of series structure where each new character that's introduced in a novel is actually we get the sort of prequel to them in a story in a separate story that comes before. So you'll meet them in the book.
Mm-hmm.
Each story will introduce a new prominent character, but if you want, there's also going to be a shorter story about that sort of character's prequel, like what they're doing before they get the call. Um, so it's been a fun way for me to sort of like I think having content helps, help sell a series. And so I've been looking at like how do I, develop a 3 or 4 book series that works as a series, but also has multiple sort of secondary um, potential content.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm working on that. I've been really into it. I've got some new stuff in the Strange Air that should be out in the next 4 to 6 weeks. So
That's
a lot
exciting.
of writing,
A
a
lot of
ton
writing.
of writing.
That's awesome. Very cool.
What's going on with you?
Um, I've been updating my website. I've started doing that. I kind of feel like that just needs to be looked at multiple times a year. I mean, sometimes I have two websites. I have my author website and I've got my like professional services website. And I've been playing around in my professional services website a little bit more lately. The author website tends to be kind of a set it and forget it one. I would like to get in there a little more often, but I don't know. Right now, I'm just sort of in the mindset of like setting up the coaching business and trying to figure out different ways to help authors. And I'm going to start, pitching the conference circuit again and podcasts and things like that. So I'm still in like outreach mode, like attracting other people's
Right.
audiences. Um, so yeah, I guess that's been my mindset right now. And I do have a meeting this week with my, or sorry, next week with the co-writers from the book that I wrote on the how-to book on how to write how-to books.
Right.
The meta project.
The meta project, right?
Which is awesome. So that meeting's next week. So we're gonna, parse out the final like what still needs to be done to actually publish it meeting.
Right.
And so that's exciting. That'll be something that I will have newly published soon. So yeah, I guess that's
That's great.
my update currently. On a more personal note, I have we have Ali's mom is really sick. I don't know if I told you this
Hmm.
off air, Eric. So we are actually flying to Turkey, kind of on a sudden trip. That's going to happen January 31st, and we'll be in Turkey for a couple weeks. And
Mm.
and
Mm.
hopefully that won't be the last time we see her, but that's what the trip is for. So that's been kind of slowing things down around here and, rearranging schedules and canceling appointments and rescheduling and making,
Right.
yeah, we canceled our Costa Rica trip. We're going to do this one instead. So Costa Rica will be pushed out a little bit. And that also means that it is probable, I mean, like 98% probable that we will not move to Costa Rica this year. So we're going to have to
Mm.
push that till next year. So those are all my author updates and
Oh,
author
I'm
life
sorry to hear it.
updates. All right. What are you reading?
Well, I'm reading two books. I'm reading a book called The Weird and the Eerie. My friend Jim Strayer, super horror fan, filmmaker, is into weird fiction. And this is a book about just sort of a book of essays about just sort of what makes something weird, because I identify a lot of what I like as weird,
Mm-hmm.
and as opposed to horror or science fiction. Or so this book really talks about like what makes something weird. Because if I look at all the artists that I love, it's like, I love Lovecraft and David Lynch, and it's all very surreal and weird stuff. And so this book talks about just what the commonalities are, what it means to be weird.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's really interesting. Mark Fisher's the author. He's a British blogger. Actually, back he was like one of the, like this very early blogger, like, and actually made a big time author career out of it. Um, and I'm looking at his bio, like, boy, what was it like to be a blogger in 2002? There you go. You write a popular blog, and the world comes looking for you to write books and speak at conferences. Um, Now, if you write your blog, you and your have something in common with your neighbor. Um, and then I'm also reading Children of Ruin by Adrian Tchaikovsky, which is the second book in his series of science fiction, um, the Children of Time series. I read the first one last year, really liked it. Thought it was fantastic. It's sort of about like this last ditch effort to save Earth, by like repopulating the Earth's population on a new planet, and it's kind of about the search for planets that are potential like candidates for repopulation, and how that goes wrong. Obviously, it's science fiction. All that ambition has to go wrong, and it's good stuff. It's very sciency. It's very in depth. It's good stuff though. I've met some people who don't like it, but You know what? I've met a lot more that do. So,
I'm still reading all
what
the
do you
same
read?
books. I
You're not
yeah,
going to name
some
them.
I have times in my life where I bust through books and read, like two or three in a week sometimes. And other
Yeah.
times it's like, oh, but fair enough. I have other life stuff that has been kind of
Right.
taking up some extra headspace and just, logistic time. So yeah, I'm still reading Ma and Me by Putzana Rang and Praying with Jane Eyre by Vanessa Zoltan.
You know, I did this. Okay, so this is kind of what a person I am. This is the person I am. It got down to the end of the year, and I was looking at my Goodreads challenge, and I had far beaten my challenge, right? Because I started counting all the books that I read to my kid, because that's reading. You know, when I
Yeah.
read out loud, when I read Narnia out loud to him, I should count that book on my.
Yeah.
So um, but I got to the end of the year and I had a bunch of short books. And I thought to myself, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to like fluff that list by reading
Yeah.
this last week of the year. I'm going to read a bunch of short books.
That
Um,
counts.
so I could get like, they're just like gimme points, layups. And so I read a bunch of little books. But then in the beginning of the year, I tried to change my like, all right, now I'm going to read the big chunky books because I'm not looking at that number.
Hmm.
Um, but now I have one of each. Like the Weird and the Eerie is really short, and the Children of Ruin is really huge. So I'm sort of clearly still in 2 years at the same time. Like I'm trying to
Hmm.
fluff the list in one hand, and I'm trying to like make the list look good in another. So
All right, let's get into the meat of the episode. Today, I'm bringing you your secret question.
okay. If
Okay.
anyone was watching, they'd notice my posture straightened up because I'm just like a student in middle school. I'm gonna get the question and I'm gonna field it. Here we go.
I think you'll like it. I think it's
Okay.
in your wheelhouse for sure. So,
Okay.
you're a very prolific writer in all of your writing career and before it was a career. All the
Hmm.
stories that you've ever written, all the characters that you've ever thought of and written. Which one was the most memorable to you and why?
Ooh, okay.
You're a character, dude.
So I just
Uh,
pulled my hat off as anybody is watching, and I scratched my head, which is the universal sign of thinking. Um,
Stalling.
no, no, because it's like immediately I got flooded with answers. You know, I got
Yeah,
flooded
yeah.
with like, oh, there was that, and there was that, and there was that. There's two that really stand out.
Hmm.
Can I do two?
Yeah, you can do too. It's your podcast. You can do
Um,
as many as you want. I just wanted to talk to you about
I make the
characters.
rules. I make the rules. Um, I okay, so in high school, I, you know, like I've been a writer for my whole life. This has just been the path that I've been on, and I've always been very open about it. And I live in my hometown now, and there's still when I see people sometimes they'll like when I tell them what I'm doing, they say, oh, of course, like it
Of
makes just
course.
makes sense. Um,
Which kind of makes you feel good a
and
little bit too. Like, this is my purpose all along, and I'm living my
it
dream.
does. It does, but then there's also the side of me that's like, I would just love to tell somebody that I don't know, I'm a marine biologist or something and shock them, but I don't get that shock. I'm not a shock guy. I'm the other kind of guy. Um, I wrote this story in high school and the name of it escapes from me, but I wrote probably, I don't know, 20,000 words of a story. And it was about these kids who it was very like sort of preteen adventure, like young teen adventure, YA. It was a portal fantasy. It was about these kids who sort of, they go back into an alternate version of their hometown and to address their discontent with just like kids, their teachers stink and their parents are mean and their friends are awful. And so this little band of kids goes back in time, goes into this portal and finds an alternative version um of their hometown, and they encounter sort of like mirror versions of themselves who offer them an opportunity to stay. Um, and it's very sort of like Twilight Zone and Stephen King, because there's a monster in it that's like the gatekeeper. And so it has like it is all the hallmarks of, now that I look at it and like blushingly think about this story, like it it definitely yeah, it had all the hallmarks of the things that I'd been reading as a kid, probably a little Treasure Island in there too. um and I remember handing it to like a bunch of people. Like there was a copy of it that went around, like this group, my circle of friends, and then like this other group of friends that were not really my group. Um, and it ended up in the hands of this kid, Trent Turvey, and he was the theater kid, and he was like, he became like this super fan, and he wanted to like he wanted to adapt it as a play, and he like approached the theater, the school's theater director to adapt it as a play. And I mean, I don't remember what happened after that. I mean, I think just like kids, like they get excited about something, then it loses steam. And I think this probably lost a little steam in there too. But it was just this kind of like glimpse. Like it was just very memorable for me, because it was like it just had it got attention. And it, I mean, this is what we want as writers. We want readers. And it was like somebody had it in their hands and they loved it. I remember him coming up. I remember he had it like in his hand, like in a, like kind of wrapped up in a tube, and he's like, I love this story. I love, and he's just like started going on. He's theater guy, right? What does theater guy do? But like, chase you down. And like, I remember his boot, he was wearing boots and they like kind of clicked on the floor. I have such a memory of it, right? But it was exciting. It was like, wow, this is what happens when people get excited about your work. You get excited about it, and I wanted to rewrite it. And I remember going home with it and thinking like, oh, what can I do with this to make this thing a great play? And it just, that's always the energy that I wanted to be around, just to be around people who make things and do things and are excited about your work. And I think it was called the tunnel, because the kids had to traverse this tunnel to get to the alternate world, which of course in a portal fantasy, it's either a well or a tunnel. Um, and yeah, so that was it's very memorable. And I don't have a draft of it, as I'm recollecting all of this. I think like, where is my copy of the tunnel? It's probably on some floppy disk somewhere in my mom's attic or something. Um, but it was so, actually, I know where the floppy disk is now that I'm thinking out loud. Like, I know where the floppy disk is. I can go find it. Um, it was just very memorable. It made me want to do this. And life of course happens, and I was in high school, and then, you know, I didn't sit down to write a novel right after that. I did remember thinking I wanted to write the sequel to it. Um, but yeah, so that was like a very first, like exciting, um, a very exciting moment. And then if I, because I make the rules and there gets to be a second one of these, um, when I ended up placing like as a semifinalist in the Nichols Fellowship for writing a screenplay, and that got me started writing screenplays. And I had this sort of vision of writing like a like autobiographical stories. I mean, because there's a lot of like auteurs from the 70s and 80s did that, it's like a long history of it, and I was really into that at the time. So I wrote this sort of like version of myself. The characters was named North. And I think I wrote like four or five screenplays, just, and it was like, I guess it was sort of like therapy in a way, because I was kind of like writing through my own like 22, 24, 26 year old, you know, troubles with this character. Um, if I go back and look at those, I've looked at those screenplays in the last 2 years, but a lot of those screenplays are like direct reflections of things that were happening in my life, breakups and moves and decisions not to go to grad school, and like everything that I did in my life. This character North, 3 months later, was doing in a screenplay. Um, but it was kind of like, it's very memorable to me because it gave me permission to put myself into a story a little bit.
Mm.
Um, you know, I, and I don't, actually don't know what other authors feel about this. I read a lot of author interviews. Um, and I don't know what other authors feel about it necessarily, but for me, it was, it was nice to get permission to, even though those screenplays didn't go any, one of them was like a finalist in a screenplay contest, but that doesn't, it was a very small screenplay contest. Um, it was so small that the announcement of my win was in fine print. Um, the, it just gave me permission to put myself in there a little bit. And that was a lot. There was a lot of me in that, and I don't do that so much anymore. Like I think I use little bits of me if I need a little something to grease the wheels in a character.
Mm-hmm.
I can go in. But yeah, it's very memorable to me to like write those scenes, and it's doubly like it was interesting because there were times of God, this was so me at like 24, but I was so aware of what I was doing that I would be like things would happen to me in my life, and then I would think like, okay, how does this fit into a screenplay? You know? um, but I think we all like I think that's an important phase because it's I don't know, it's juvenilia. It's like you're young writing. It's like it gives you like you can screw it up. You should screw it up. If you are trying to get it right too quickly, then you're not just like getting words on the page. So I think it was just a great exercise in like learning the limits of connecting myself to the story and but also permission to put myself into it. And um, there's one of those scripts that was really, really good, and I really thought it was gonna do. So I was really convinced it was gonna do something. Like I was ready to go. Like I can make this movie for $200,000, and I'm gonna go ask people for money. And
Mm-hmm.
it was, I wasn't gonna play me. There was gonna be somebody far more talented as an actor playing me. But yeah, it was. Those are two very memorable stories and characters that um, I don't think I could be here without.
Without North.
I think North just gave me the idea. Yeah, like I don't think I could. Like I think Melville is a reflection. Like a lot of. Here's what it did. Okay, since now I'm like thinking this out loud, and this is kind of like a proxy therapy session. Like I think I put so much energy into overtly putting myself into stories in those scripts that I stepped back and I learned the subtle art of adding yourself to stories because I realized like after a while, it was just kind of becoming repetitive. Like I lost a job, suddenly North loses a job, and like it wasn't, I don't know, it ran its course,
Mm-hmm.
but I knew that there was something there, but not to the extent that I was doing it. So I realized I had to sort of recreate around that idea. And so now like there's a lot of me in Melville, there's a lot of me. And a lot of the elements in those stories, I'm not going to dive into them right now, but like a lot of the elements in those stories are sort of metaphoric of things in my life. Um, there's just a lot of it. So there are elements in the story that I know people have identified with and have approached me about and said they've enjoyed. So I think I just had to, I had to get that out of my system, that autobiographical
Mm-hmm.
thing out of my system. If you look at like, I was really into Francois Truffaut. I think there's a Truffaut movie poster maybe somewhere in this room. Anyway, like his first 8 movies were about him. They were his life.
Mm-hmm.
And that was 1959 or something. So it's like different time, different era. Um, and I guess that was just never going to be me. I guess I needed to get comfortable with putting myself on the page in a small way,
Mm-hmm.
in little ways. And I still see myself doing it, right? I'm kind of working on this new thing while taking a break from strange air stuff. And I can see like as I go back and reread things past the first draft, I'll see like, oh, that's a little bit of me, and there I am right there. And um, I think learning how to put yourself in a story in small ways is, I think, an art that I think most writers, have to face at some point.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a nonfiction essayist, you probably have to put a lot of yourself in there. If you're a fiction author, you have to be, it's a little more, be a little more careful. Um, but it helps me grease the wheels for sure. Like there's a new character that I've been working on, and it the little bits of me that I've found in there already, I realize when those allow me to go on the other direction. Like if I give the character a little bit of me, it gives me permission to reach out into something completely foreign to add. So I can look at a character and say, there's a little bit of me and there's a little bit of way not me. And those two things those things help me like balance it out. It helps those things coexist, I guess. Because without that, I would feel like the character is too fictional, or too non-fictional for me to keep writing, I guess. I don't know.
That's really interesting.
This feels like a therapy session.
I didn't mean it to
In a
be.
good
I
way,
just
in
wanted to know like
it.
what characters resonated with you when you were writing them. So
Well, I think that yeah, go
on the
ahead.
first one, the first story you were telling me about, the
Yeah,
tunnel, you said there was a
yeah,
band of kids that
yeah.
went through the portal.
Oh,
Which
they were.
did you resonate with any? Who was the protagonist there? Was there one? Who was your favorite character from that story?
I don't remember the names of the characters. They escape me, but it was very much the archetypes of the characters from Stephen King's It. Um, you had the one girl who was the object of affection for two of the boys, and one of those boys was the point of view boys, and then there was the sort of I remember there was like so there was that dynamic. There's like the love triangle thing. And very very much the trope that in that from that book. Um, the point of view character is the boy who like had the secret love for her, and then the other boy is like the brash and outlandish one, the one who's willing to say things. Boy, you look good today, that kid. Will you go out with me later, that kind of kid. And then there was a couple other kids that were, I think, kind of the daredevil kid who'd do anything, and the sort of probably like the nerdy analytical kid who's always questioning decisions. It was like the perfect, if you look at that whole band of kids trope from like the 80s, it's probably just some version of that. And I always kind of fancied myself you know the Sean Astin from Goonies, or like the kid who's just sort of like there observing the thing, who's on the adventure but also sort of like the observer. He's the one who's noticing everything. It's not Sean Astin who's the observer from Goonies. It's the other kid. Regardless, like I always put myself in that role of like the one watching, because that's kind of what I am. It's just part of how I've lived
The
my life is
narrator.
the narrator, just like observing what's going on around me, being immersed, but also like feeling like it's my role to record and remember what happens. I think I've, for better or worse, taken that role in life. Um, and so, I always put myself in that character role, which is what makes North such an odd character, is that he's not that guy. Like he's definitely, at least in the first couple of stories as I remember, he's definitely like living his mistakes and um, blind to his own folly kind of character, um, which makes him a more fun character to live on the screen with you as a viewer. So I in that old one though, I was definitely the sort of kid in the middle.
Well, thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Did you like the
Now, hey, but
questions?
I love it. I love it. But if the next time you ask me what I'm working on, and if I'm like rehashing old screenplays, like it's your fault. Um, it is your fault. Because look, there's one of those stories, and I'll just like briefly kind of pitch it here. It was called Free to a Good Home, and it's about North and his sort of his frenemy from that day and age, and they have a couch, this great couch. That college couch that's like it's terrific, and you can put any other couch out on the curb, but this one you've got to give to somebody because it's perfect. You know, the arm of the chair holds a beer, and you can sleep on it, and you can sit in it, and it's the perfect couch. Well, they have that couch, and they're taking it to someone, and it's sort of a road story of them, you know, taking this couch, this perfect couch, to a friend who's a freshman, and it's them reconciling their relationship, which was rocky in college, through this road trip. And as it turns out, the person they're taking the couch to is Norse friend's sister, who Norse always had a crush on, and she's far more emotionally mature than him. And when he thinks he's going on this journey to not only bring her the couch, but like, hey, I'm ready to have that relationship, and she doesn't. Um, she's far more emotionally mature, and she identifies all the ways in which, you know, she's just not at that phase in her life and ready for a relationship with an older guy. It's it's got that sort of like indie, sort of, drama comedy type of feel to it. It was based on like all those, I don't know, you name your indie drama from like 2003, and it was probably a huge influence on that story. But it was great. For me, it was like such a fun. There's like a car chase in it. Um,
It kind of
with
reminds
the
me
couches.
when you were talking about the road trip and the going to see the girl, and it sounded like a John Cusack movie from the 80s or something, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But then that
except he
movie, The
always got the
Puffy
girl
Chair.
in the end. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, see, and that was sort of the whole like indie movie thing of the early 2000s, where it was like there was always that sort of more emotionally mature love interest that's there to, like, hey guy, I know that you're funny, and you're witty and older, but here's the thing, I've got my life. It was just a different, that indie, there was a little bit of like bittersweet that was part
Hmm.
of that aesthetic in those movies, and I wanted to nail that. And it was so like, I mean, I probably worked on that script for longer than a lot of things. I thought it was really good. Like I said, there was a car chase. The couch figures prominently into the car chase. Um, I mean, there's drinking games. It was fun. It was sad. It didn't go anywhere.
So as an indie author
Hmm.
of screenplays, what do you do with
Hmm.
those? Because like with a novel or a novella, you can just publish it and add it to your back
Right.
catalog. So, and this sounds like, I mean, a fantastic story. I want to read this story. But as a screenplay, like what do
Don't
you
get me
do?
started.
What do you do
Don't
with
get me
screenplays
started.
if you're an indie author?
Well, the idea at that time was, I mean, I wrote it to a budget. So I said, like, if I can get $250,000 investment, I could make this movie. And then I've got just as good a shot as anybody to take it out to festivals and
Hmm.
get distribution for it. Um, I actually like had meetings with I had meetings. Like, I got all
You
kinds of
guy.
people. Well, I got like, you get the people and then if you
Hmm.
get them hooked in, you get the people they know. And then
Right.
I was working that train, trying to
Hmm.
find somebody who knew somebody who could get it done. I had the role cast, I had it all. I had the locations figured out. They were gonna kind of start in Eugene as the college town, and they were gonna end in Portland. I had streets in Port. I had done some production on the whole thing, and I don't remember what stopped it. I was also working for a film crew at the time, like a film troupe, and we were doing movies on a regular basis. So we probably got caught up in another film production that I believed in, and then that took precedent. By the time I got back to those, the story had lost steam. That's what happens, they lose steam. So, but back to your original question, like, you can do a lot. I mean, back then it was get into production or sell it, because there was a big market for spec screenplays. Um, you could go out and sell a script for basically a year's salary, and people were doing it. Um, and that died out because the spec scripts are just not what they used to be anymore.
Hmm.
So now, if you're going to write an independent screenplay, you're probably going to use it as a calling card to get a screenplay job writing for a more established producer. I mean, that's
Hmm.
what I write, an original probably every 6 months, an original screenplay, something new, because it's part of my business. I have ongoing screenwriting relationships with producers. Um, if I want more of those relationships, I have to have a fresh sample.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a connection now, a guy that I work for. I've written 3 films for him that he has sold. I don't know what's going to happen with them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I'm kind of working up to, there's one more I'm going to finish, and I'm going to work it up to. All right, Andrew, you want to see one of mine and see if you want to option that
Uh-huh.
because so it's film more than anything. If you now I said something about $250,000 movie. You can't make a movie for $250,000 anymore. Like that's just not an attainable budget if you're going to use real tech. It's probably attainable if you're getting favors for everything. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You'd have to get favors in every bit of the all the technical stuff, and you'd probably spend that much money trying to get it out to festivals. But realistically, like now you need $1 million to even have a chance to get something together,
Probably you
and you
need a
still
like
have
an
to have
angel producer then or something. If you're
yeah,
just
either
an
that or you
indie
have to.
person with no budget, then you just write the work and hope that somebody will produce it and give you the $1 million to make it.
Well, yes. So that's the idea, right? I've got a script that I've been working on and off for a year now, and I get when Andrew and I have we have like an every couple of months meeting on what he wants me to work on and what where I'm at with things. And so I don't know, like I may pitch him this script one day and say, but then the it's a different business. It would be all right, Eric, I will option it for this amount of money, and if it gets produced, you'll get paid this amount of money, and if it gets released, you'll get, so that becomes but it takes one of those and all of a sudden my business plan changes dramatically. I'm no longer ghostwriting, I'm writing feature films. So
Wow. That's kind
we'll
of
see.
exciting. Yeah.
It's a
Yay.
weird world. I've been in a lot of them, and that was one of them. And you brought me back there. Like I said, if I'm my next author update includes rewriting old screenplays, Valerie's to blame. Not to blame, to thank, actually, probably.
All right. Well, thanks for going down memory lane with me. That
Oh, thank you for taking me there.
was fun.
I haven't thought about some of that stuff in a long, long time, actually. Um, and just as fate would have it, I'm gonna run into that kid Trent in the next week or so, and then I'm gonna I'm gonna ask him, where's the theater production? I'm still waiting. It's been more than 30 years, Trent. Let's go. When are we gonna do this?
That's funny. That's awesome. All right. Well,
This Oregon City High School has moved. I don't even know what the theater looks like anymore.
aw. Well, thanks so much for talking with me this week, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Awesome. Bye for now.
Bye bye. Bye bye.